Hi, my name is Dennis Siri. I am Executive Director and founder of the New York City Independent Film Festival, Independent in Spirit, International at Heart, and this is the New York City Independent Film Festival Meet the Filmmakers podcast. Join us while we meet this year's filmmakers. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, yes, welcome to today's podcast, and today we're here with Augusto and Roberto. Hi, guys. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, how you doing, Dennis? Thank you for the opportunity and hello to the audience. My name is Roberto Collado. I'm a filmmaker from Mexico. I'm a director, producer, writer. Well, when you're poor, you have to do all those jobs that usually in a big production are done by different people. But anyhow, I'm from Mexico, but I studied most of my life in the United States. I studied film and theater in Texas and also a master's in film in New York City.
Hi, Denise. Hi, Roberto. My name is Augusto Contreras, and I'm an acting teacher, an educator. I'm an educator here in South Texas. I'm also a writer. I have wrote several plays, and Herida Abierta is actually my first short film that I co-wrote with my friend here, Roberto Collado, and it's been a pleasure working with him and learning from him. I also studied a master's degree in Texas in theater arts, and I studied a second master's degree in applied theater at City University of New York as well.
All right, so I guess my first question is, what made you guys decide to become filmmakers?
For me, it was fortuitous actually. I was studying to become a pilot. I am a pilot actually, a private pilot. I have two licenses, private and instrument rating. And I was studying there in the United States in South Texas to become a pilot when the regulations changed. And you couldn't study aviation anymore. You could study aviation, but the school that I was going to, it didn't have the necessary requirements for you to apply for a student visa. So I didn't have a student visa. And so my only option was to come back to Mexico or to figure out a way to get a student visa. And someone said, a lineman. A lineman is, those people in the airport who move the airplanes and all that stuff. A lineman told me, well, there's a university close by. Why don't you go and just enroll and take some courses, and then you can keep flying? And I said, okay. So I went to the university and I talked to the enrollment person, and I just couldn't figure out what to study because I really didn't care. I just wanted to fly. And so I said, there's so many different things, so many careers that I like, I like criminology and engineering and all that stuff. And I said, I wish I could study all of them at once. And she said, well, you can't do that. But I said, if I was an actor, I told her, if I was an actor, I could be all of them at once. And she said, well, that's true. And I asked her, do you have an acting career, an acting program? And she said, well, yes, we do. We have a theater program. And I said, all right, write me in. I'm in. And so that's how I started studying first acting, and I became involved in the theater program there in the University of Texas. And then, there was other guys who were making short films for their classes, for their courses, and they were studying film. And then so they called me in to act in a couple of their short films, and I really enjoyed it. But I don't know, it just seemed more fun to be behind the camera for me. I was sweating and running, and then they were just behind the camera going, no, yeah, that's good. No, yeah, I didn't like that. I cut. No, let's do it again. And I was like, that looks a lot more fun than what I'm doing. And so I changed tracks to instead of theater production, I changed track to film, and been there ever since.
Never look back.
Yeah, never looked back.
How about you, Augusto?
I consider myself mainly and primarily a storyteller. I like writing stories and telling stories. I love teaching through stories. I love teaching through parables. So I moved into South Texas 14 years ago. I'm here by the river, but that's where I met Roberto initially here in South Texas while he was finishing his career. And I moved here and I got into the Master in Theater program. And I wanted to tell stories about the border. I wanted to tell stories about the river, and I wanted to be impactful. So I wanted to start writing theater because I was already a theater major and doing original theater work about the valley. And I noticed the impact in the community. But then again, I was like, okay, 100 people, 200 people, 300 people watch the play. I want to go bigger, right? I want more people to see the stories because I feel the border is so rich. Uh, and then, of course, Roberto being one of my best friends here in the Valley, he was moving to New York to study a master program in film. And I was like, wait a second, maybe we can write a story for film. And it's funny because the first draft that we wrote, I mean, I kind of like sketch it really. Roberto read it and he was like, okay, this is a play. This is not a film. This is a play. We need to make this into a film. So really he took over and started adapting that story into the final script. Uh, so that's why I became a filmmaker, which is barely my first film. The other reason is why it's so important. I feel it's worth it for me to tell you why it's so important for me to tell stories is because I actually have one of my cousins. He died trying to cross the river. He drowned in the river in the Rio Grande Valley, and ever since he died, I was 12. Ever since he died, I had this open wound, and that's why at the end of the day we decided to call the film "Herida Abierta," open wound, right? And it's never gonna heal, right? But at least we're trying to stitch it through the power of storytelling.
All right, so and I guess you also answered the next question. So, all right, so when you said to everybody, "I'm going to be an indie filmmaker," what did your family and friends say? What are you crazy? Go get a real job, or what was, or were they supportive?
Actually, I don't know. I was pampered since I was a kid, I think. Because I wanted to be a combat aviator, and I went into the Mexican Navy, and my family supported me. And then I wanted to be a commercial pilot, and then my family supported me. And so when I decided to join the university to enroll, they didn't say anything. My mom kind of rolled her eyes, and she was like, "Oh no, not again, not another venture." And but they never criticized it. Actually, the for me, what was harder was to coming out into reality. Like when you're there in the program, when you're there in the university, you study, you're making your films and all that. You think, well, once I graduate, this is gonna be the same, but now I'm gonna get paid. And then you go out and you realize it's nothing like that. It's basically start from the beginning, and do things that you don't really like commercial stuff or stuff for politicians. And so the hardest thing for me, like the slap into reality, was when I graduated and I discovered that you had to basically fend for yourself, and find a way to insert yourself in the medium if that's what you want to do. And it was a bit discouraging at the beginning, but then I say, you know what? There's nothing that I'd rather be doing other than this and flying, so I'm just gonna do it.
To me, Herida Abierta, it's a product of everything else that me and my wife have been doing here in South Texas. We have 4 fine art schools. We teach acting and theater, and we had film and photo and music and dance. And we have 4 studios. We started 10 years ago. We have 4 studios, 500 students. So to me, Herida Abierta, this film, it's a consequence of everything else that we have built. But you're pretty right. Before we started the school, yeah, people look at you like, what do you want to do a fine arts in education business? Like, what do you want to do a school for acting? What do you want to do a school for filming? Like, what are you thinking? Like, that's not a money maker. But to be honest, it's not about the money making. The success comes in different shapes and forms. And look at us, like right now we're having an interview with someone in New York, and who could have like thought that a couple years ago, right? Only dreamers and only people with a different vision of society can really foresee these kind of like adventures. Like, okay, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. And I'm happy and proud to say, and I'm so happy with Roberto and everybody else in the team to say that we have been an official selection for 14 other festivals. So
Very nice.
this, yeah, and from LA to Barcelona to Monterrey, and it's really rewarding. And of course, I hope this is just the beginning, right?
So I guess where you are, do you have a group, a tribe, a group of people that is your soulmates, the people you hang out with? Do you have that where you live?
Well, actually, yes, I have, you know, regular friends like anybody else, I guess. And I'm also a biker, you know, motorcycle rider, and so I have a, you know, my group with the people that ride motorcycles with me and stuff. But I tend to keep in contact with the people I work with, and I've been working with the same people more than 15 years, actually. Me and I think the first film that me and Augusto made together, he was an actor, and I had another actor throwing hamburgers at him. And I directed it more than 15 years ago, and also our producer Dulce Nava, and a bunch of people that I work with, I keep in contact, and I'm always in contact with them, and I always have them in my mind when I'm going to do another project, and that's very important for me because, of course, I recognize talent, and I try to be close to people who are really talented. But the most important thing for me in a production is the way things flow when you're in the set, and when you're in post production, and when you're in pre-production, and so what's most important for me is that flow, and that flow comes, I think, from the way we get along together, the way we understand each other as people, as individuals, and of course we respect each other and each other's talents, and we recognize them. But the most important thing is that we can create a good environment in which to work, and so I keep in contact with them. And the future project that we have planned, me and Augusto, or each of us individually, separately, we always keep each other in mind.
So you do have a group. So Augusto,
Yeah.
do you agree that, are you the same tribe, or do you have another one where you live?
No, 100%. It's a network, you know, since there's not too many of us. Once you find your tribe, you know, you got to keep it together. You got to keep strong, and unity is so important. There's not such thing as competition. I feel that's very different from New York or bigger cities where we have lived, where not everybody knows each other and not everybody is supportive of each other, right? It's only understandable because there's so many efforts. Here, it's more like, hey, it's 20 of us. Let's keep it together, guys. So like, we cannot be divided, or else we are gonna like auto destroy each other. So the network is strong, and we always helping each other. Either that's why I've been an actor, a director, a producer, a sponsor, even of different projects, because we all work together in different shapes and forms. But to be honest, I think the Rio Grande Valley, South Texas, and Northeast Mexico, Tamaulipas and Nuevo León, they need to get out of their markets and out of their comfort zones. And to be honest, this is the first that I know of. This is the first Rio Grande Valley short film that made it to your festival. So I think that's an example of the vision that we have for this project and for the other projects to come, for them to reach out bigger and greater heights, you know. To be honest, there's a couple of local festivals here which I appreciate and love a lot, but I also feel a little tired that the same filmmakers are the ones that make it to these festivals. Like, we need to go beyond this, not only for us to go out, but also for other filmmakers to come to our festivals and share their knowledge and expertise.
Yep, that makes sense. All right, so this film, you already told us partially, but what made you decide to do this film?
Well, actually, the original idea was was from Augusto. Like he said, he wrote a script and he showed it to me. He said, "I have a script that I want to make into a film. Would you take a look at it?" I said, "Yeah, of course." So I read it and I told him, "It's a good story. It's a really good story, but it's really a play. I mean, this is more like theater stuff." And of course, it's natural because he's a good playwright. He's a very good playwright, and he's always been involved in theater, and he does it so naturally. It just comes to him. And he's also a great theater actor. You should see him on stage. He's amazing. And so I said, we need to turn it into a film. And he said, of course, yes, let's do it. Why don't you change the format? I said, wait a minute. It you want to make it a short film or a feature film? And he said, well, let's make it into a feature film. And I said, well, you're missing about 80 pages. We need more information to make it into a feature film. And he said, all right, well, let's turn it into a short film. And I said, well, then we have 40 plus pages that we need to get rid of, turn it into a short film. And he said, really? And I said, yes. I said, okay. But the main thing, and I told him, but it's going to be really easy because you have very good content in it. I can see the story for a short film right there. The characters are very interesting. And it's just going to be an easier process of just getting rid of the fat and just, being left over with just the meat of the story and just the things that are very cinematic and that you can translate it into concrete actions. And so I started working on that, on the script. We went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I think we ended up with the sixth draft or something like that, 6 or 7 drafts until we finally were satisfied with the final script. And then after that, it was just a matter of producing. And this guy is he actually he didn't know it, but he's an amazing producer. And so he started producing the film with another producer, with Dulce Navarro, who has produced all of my films or most of them. Yeah, that's how we decided to make the film. The film was, in the beginning, it was very important for me. It resonated within me because the film opens up with a quote of a writer from the Valley, and her name was Gloria Anzaldu. And that's my second last name. In Mexico, we use first and second last name. My last names are Collado Anzaldu. And so she's a relative of mine. She's a distant relative. My family is from the border, my mom's side of the family. And the quote is beautiful. The quote is, the U.S.-Mexico border es una herida abierta, where the third world grates against the first and bleeds. And so she writes it in English, but she says the open wound part in Spanish. And for me, that was just, that blew my mind. And I was like, okay, yeah, we need to capture that essence of, the U.S.-Mexico border es una herida abierta, where the third world grates against the first and bleeds, and not just from the more visceral, physical, cultural aspect of the phrase itself, but also of the particular use of language and culture that this place has. There's just no other place in the world where you would just purposely select those two words and say them in Spanish and cause an effect, right? It wasn't just because she was a Tex-Mex or pocho, like we say here in Mexico to refer to the people in California, Mexican American people in California, but she was doing it for a literary purpose. Mm-hmm. And so I said, let's make the film, let's write the film that captures that essence. And I think that's what we set out to do, and I think we've accomplished it because I hadn't seen a film up to that point that it really takes no sides. It really, most of the films that you see in Mexico about immigration, they are, in my opinion, one-sided. We tend to side with the immigrants. which is natural. And a lot of the films in the United States that are made about immigration, they always have the counterpart to that, right? The U.S. perspective on immigration, whether it's right or left. I'm talking about politically in the filmmaking world in the United States, right? Like you would have your left wing films, and then you would have your more right wing films about the same issue. And in Mexico is basically just one
Right.
monolithic view of the immigration thing. But in this film, I said, Augusto, we have to make the film very try to be as objective as we can, and just look at the characters and their struggles as people, and leave the cultural stuff and the political stuff in the background. Of course, it will be there for anyone who wishes to see it. It will be there. But I think the film in the end, what it asks the audience to do is to draw up their own conclusions. Not to be partial to any one side, but to look at the story and the conflict that comes within the story and the resolution of it, and say, okay, well, this might have happened differently if this was done or this was done, or this character could have done this differently or that. And the story is not based on real true events, particular true events, but at the same time, that kind of stuff happens every day.
Just to begin with, I would like to say my wife, mother, my in-laws, they live 2 blocks from the river. The other day, my wife called me at 11 p.m. at night. She was stepping out of my in-laws' house, and she called me really scared. There is a man in my car. There is a man sleeping in the back seat of my car. And I called the police. Unfortunately, I had to, because it's my wife's security over this immigrant. But he was literally a Mexican connational trying to cross the border, hiding from the border patrol in my wife's backseat. And if I were there, and I can say this publicly, I don't care, right? If I were there, I will invite this guy a glass of water and walk him out of my wife's car myself. Right. But since my wife was alone, I have no choice other to call the police. So literally these things happen every day, as Roberto said. And to piggyback off what Roberto said about the script writing, it was amazing to me as a playwright. It was amazing to see how a filmmaker and a film writer like take the script and really turn it into a story for the camera. And a lot of things happen in that process. We have a whole new story after that, and I don't mind that happened, because part of the creative process, the co-creating process, is that like letting go of your ideas and making space for new ones, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing that I saw that I really enjoy, Dennis, was like seeing like pages and pages of dialogue turn into 2 shots by Roberto. You know what I mean? Like we don't need these 5 pages. We can like kill it with these 2 shots. And it was amazing to me how film can tell you so much with so little. To me, as a playwright for theater, I was like amazed by the filmmaking process. And yeah, I'll say that about the script writing and about the idea. And as Roberto said, it's not about taking one side. We have been benefited and we have suffered from the issue itself. Like we have been both blessed by being able to study here in the United States, live in Mexico, live in the United States. So who we are to judge or to take one side, when really we're artists who are here just to depict reality through our lenses or through the camera lenses. We're not here to point any fingers, or, I mean, there is artists that choose that route, and that's great, but really we want people to make their own choices, like to make their own conclusions about the border. Like that's why we didn't want the border patrol who's chasing the poor Mexican, or the Mexican narco who's like taking advantage, or no, we didn't want any of those characters,
Right.
Okay, that's cool. You actually answered just about everything else I was going to ask, but that's okay. I guess what I'll say is, what was the hardest part? What was the most difficult part about getting this film done?
Well, that might just be me, my own experience, but for me, the most difficult part always in all films that I've made, it's coming up with a budget, with the money. Yeah, that's for me. It's a big. It's always been a big problem. I know I have to work on that, but it's always the most tiresome part of the whole process is just figuring out, okay, where am I going to get the money, and how much am I going to spend in this, and whether my resources are going to be allocated here or here. That was the hardest part, because the rest of it, is just, for me, filmmaking, as in any other art form, is just like a martial art. You throw a punch 100 times, and then you see it getting better and better and better and better, and then you don't think about it, and then you throw it perfectly, or at least close to perfect. And that's what I've been doing for a number of years, and placing that camera and writing that scene and directing that shot, and one again and again and again and again, until it becomes a natural process for me. And that's why I'm always very interested in working with the same people, because I know how they're gonna react, and they know how I'm gonna react, and so it just becomes an easier process. But in this particular film, I was amazed how easy it was for Augusto to say, how much do you need in terms of money, budget for camera? And I said, well, you're asking me as a friend, or you're asking me as a filmmaker who wants to make the perfect film? And he said, well, first, as a filmmaker. And I said, well, I need this much. And he said, all right, I can get that. And I don't know how, but then he came up with the money a couple of weeks later. And I thought, man, why didn't I work with this guy before like this? Why did I have him acting in my films instead of being a producer? But for me, that was the hardest part. And I saw him, and I think that was the easiest part for him. He just didn't even, bat an eye when thinking about money issues and stuff like that.
And I would like to interject in that. And it's not that I come from money or anything. No, it's nothing like that. It's more like I created this school, this business 10 years ago for this mere purpose, for me to be able to have the resources to provide to talented artists, and for me to, like, for them to reach their potential. We're not rich, but we're very resourceful. So a lot of things that Roberto asked me regarding the budget, I already had. Like, well, we need someone to cater the actors for, like, the time being. I already have a friend that cooks for my events, so I just asked him to cook for this one production. He asked me for a band. My studio has a band. He asked me for assistant production person. She was in my payroll in my company, so I just bring her from my payroll and put him into the film's budget. Right. So having a company, and I think this is really good for any filmmaker that will ever listen to this portion of the interview. You gotta be a business-minded person to really, really take your craft to the next level. I'm sorry, or if you're not, you need to partner with someone that is business-minded. That's it. Either you are that person, or you partner with that person. But that's just the way it works. And I know it sounds wonderful and dreamy to say, no, you just have a dream and a vision, and you know how to work the camera, you do it. No. Who's going to pay for the water? Who's going to pay for the food? Who's going to pay for the gas? Who's going to rent the spaces? You need that person in the back helping you. So that's the way Michelangelo did it. He had a sponsor back in the 1600s. That's the way Shakespeare did it. Queen Victoria sponsored. Yeah, oh my gosh, Shakespeare wrote 33 plays in this amount of time. I'm not bragging, but give me $1 million and I'll come back with a lot of plays, to be honest.
I know, well, like Selma spent 5 years getting enough money to make Frida. And,
right.
and look at where she is. And it took her 5 years. So
Right.
yeah, no, it's hard.
Yeah, it
All
is
right,
hard.
guys. So what was the fun part? Although you sound like it was all kind of put together there, but what would you say was the most fun of the whole project?
Can I start with that one?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Filming at the Rio Grande Valley. Filming, I'm pardon my language, but filming at that, you know, like flying a drone over the Rio Grande Valley, and I mean, we asked the local police, local PD knew about it, but CBP and Border Patrol didn't know about it. So we gotta be really quick and really, we studied the Rio Grande Valley. We went into Google Earth and Google Images, and we knew where we wanted to go the morning off. We knew where we wanted to be. We knew what we wanted to film. So to me, that opening shot, oh my God, that to me is like, people might think, okay, this is just a river. No, half of the screen is Mexico, half of the screen is the US. And that is so rewarding for a storyteller.
I would say the same thing. I was going to say the same thing. Just filming in the valley, because one of two things can happen when you go and shoot a film. Either people react very pleasantly and they're surprised and they like it, or either people are fed up with it. And that usually happens in places like New York. Like New York, we've shot films in New York, and people look at it like, you know, like a nuisance, you know. Again. But here in this part of Mexico and in the valley, people always react very pleasantly to the whole thing. They're like, "Oh, really?" And they're very interested, and I've had that experience here in Mexico also. And the best thing about the valley is that you can feel the heat, not just in the environment, but you can feel the heat when you get into the border areas. You know, the National Guard is there, Border Patrol is there, you know, immigration customs and all that. They're all there. And on the other side, and this is no joke, this is true. And the other side, you know that there's people watching you, and they're not Mexican authorities. You know who they are, and you know they're watching you. But the fun thing about the valley is that that is happening. But you know, the worst thing that could happen is that, okay, you know, the National Guard or the police comes and, you know, shuts you down, and, you know, maybe if you get a little feisty, they'll you know, they'll put you in jail. But in Mexico, and I've shot films here in Mexico and in the border, we've had our production shut down by the cartels. Really, we've had that experience before. And the fun thing about the valley is that, you know, you can still feel. Of course, that was 10 years ago that happened. It was a different time in Mexico. Now things have changed. But and in the valley, you always have that thing in the back of your mind where, okay, the worst thing that can happen is that I end up in jail, and that's it. And yeah, that was the most exciting part about it, the most fun that we've had. And also to work, for me, to work with a lot of people that had never worked in film before. Augusto had never worked in film before in that capacity. He was an actor in a number of films, short films. But a lot of the people who had parts in the film never acted in a film before. And a lot of the people that worked in other departments, like we had a meeting with all the staff that he has in his company, and it was basically like talent seeking. You know, I would just look at a girl or a guy and tell Augusto, you know what, I think this person could be good for this role in the production, and that's how we filled in all the people in the production, and it worked, and it really worked. There were some people that amazed me that I thought, well, you know, they're not gonna make it, but I know how to, you know,
Make it work.
how to fill in for what they're lacking. And in the end, they gave me what I was expecting, what I wanted, what the production required, and then some. You know, so that was the fun part of the experience.
All right, guys. I actually have to wrap up because I'm doing these one right after the other. So I'm going to say, is there any closing statements you guys want to make? Any closing comments or anything?
I'd like
I'll
to
let
say,
Augusto go first. Yes.
I like to say that for every artist and for every filmmaker out there who are thinking of doing their independent film, don't get discouraged. It's a lot of work, of course, as everything that is worth in life. It takes a lot of work, but it's worth it. Gather your resources before you start. Don't, nowadays you see the screen and you roll the screen constantly and you think life is just like that screen, that everything pops up right when you think about it. But no, real life, it's about work and dedication and really put the time. Like, the script took us 2 years. We shoot that film in 10 days, but it took us 2 years just we come with the final draft. So good things take time, guys, and they're worth it. They pay off. And also enjoy the ride. Enjoy it. Enjoy every single part of the process, because if you're only thinking that you're going to enjoy the film once it's ready, you're going to suffer the whole process. And it's not like that. Enjoy every single day of the process. Even the days that feel that you don't advance a lot, one step, it's already moving along. So that's my final remark. And thank you for the opportunity and the invitation.
Certainly. Thank you for sending your film. It was great.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Okay.
Dennis.